Welcome to the Casual Adventure Notes podcast, the CAN podcast, lazy, easy listening about little life's adventures.
And lessons.
I'm Doz.
And I'm Devy.
The clapper scared the dogs. They're in shot again today, but he's so anxious. I have a cavoodle named Archie clinging to me at the moment. He shook a little bit when he heard the clapper. They heard it last time, but I think I don't know, maybe it just didn't register for them or something like that. But he's freaking out, but I think he's calming down slowly.
I did it a little bit loud initially, and he was also in the vicinity, so maybe he wasn't expecting it. He's a bit of a chicken, so kind of freaks out with everything.
All right, let's kick things up with our palate cleanser.
Just behind me. All right. So this is 101 things I learned in business school. You can't probably see it from there. Did you want to pick a number?
Number 2. Not sure if we've done this. But it should be fun.
All right, number 2. I don't think so. It doesn't look familiar.
What is it?
So the title is Business is a Field of Multiple Endeavors. And then it has a couple of areas in, I guess, an organization. So it has accounting, the language of business, which organizes and conveys information about transactions in monetary terms. Finance, the management of money and monetary assets. Marketing, a systematic identification of and response to customer needs and wants, including the coordination of branding, promotion, distribution, and delivery. Production and operations, the coordination and overseeing of activities such as manufacturing and provision of services. Organizational behavior, the study of how people act and interact in work. Settings may include motivational strategies, corporate organization and culture, leadership models, group psychology, and conflict resolution. And then economics, a broad social science concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods, services, and financial resources.
Okay. I think there was a similar one, which made it sound the same. I remember one time someone's like, oh, you can't run a business by yourself because there's multiple departments. And I think this just summarizes the multiple departments to have a full functioning business.
Yeah, I think it talks more around fields of study more than certain business units of an area, because it doesn't for example, in every organization you need your human resources department, but doesn't actually specifically mention that. It just talks about more these
are all the pathways to get into
the fields.
Business.
Yeah, that's right. And accounting and finance is they're normally sort of latched into one business unit, but they're two different fields, because accounting is really looking at the history, the historic of what's happened from a dollar's perspective, sales, past performance, whereas finance can be more around projecting future revenue, future cost, that sort of stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think might have been something that I picked when I said around how you need all these functions to coexist in order to have a successful business that operates and runs well. And I remember saying how there's a lot of certain areas, for example, payroll and HR, where people sort of tend to not overlook, but they tend to forget that how important they are until something happens, when they miss payday by a day, or when something happens. But they are very valuable to the company and a necessity.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Let's dive into our main course. So the opener is finished for our visual watchers. You would have already seen it. But for our audio listeners, I will try my best to describe it. So we commissioned an artist through her art style to animate a new opening for us around the theme of casual adventure notes. So the brief features our cartoon versions of our characters that kind of demonstrates our personalities through a loop and in a scene or setting where you would be creating these casual adventures that we would then later take notes and talk about. So the scene that ended up being produced was in an airport where Devy is sitting scrolling on his phone and my cartoon version is like waving, trying to get his attention. We have suitcase by us, and the concept is like at an airport, you are about to depart on your adventure. It's so cute. We picked her because her art style is pixel art. So it's when you use like pixels, so squares, to produce like an image. And I like that art style. I think a lot of people in our generation likes that a lot because of the nostalgia that comes with pixel art. And I also liked it because it has kind of like the way she designs her characters, like they're chibi, so big head, big eyes. So they kind of have this like anime inspired look, which is an influence I really like. So yeah, out of kind of just browsing through a few artists and a few portfolio, she was just someone I gravitated towards. She was actually already an artist I followed online because I liked her art style. And when I found that she was open for commission, I just reached out to her and we got something produced.
That's so cool. To have something that's been made specifically for you. Maybe it might be something to print out and hang up, because I actually think it's also really quite I don't know, it's just really nice to look at, and you'd be like, this is me and this is you.
She's so talented. I just feel like I'm gonna butcher her name, so I'm gonna put it on screen, and it's called I don't have it in front of me. I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to put her folio on screen. Audio listeners, you're just going to have to click on the YouTube video so you can actually see it. And I'll kind of show like all her kind of art on her Instagram profile, and we'll credit her in the description for this one as well. She's awesome. I wanted to do it because I'm a big believer on supporting artists, especially small artists and stuff like that, because I think the creative industry is sometimes underlooked. So I actually have a background in the creative industry. Once upon a time, like very young, I was an aspiring filmmaker until I realized how hard it was to become a filmmaker. And there was only very specific things I liked about being a filmmaker. So in terms of like career and passion pursuit, it kind of just like fizzled out naturally because the elements I did like about it, I introduced in other parts of my life anyways. But coming from the creative industry, I learned a lot to appreciate people who do art and people who do creative ventures, because I think people don't appreciate the kind of work that goes into it. I think anyone who takes it to a certain level, especially career-wise or what type of projects they do, kind of really shows how passionate or truly how much they love it. Because I think the everyday person who doesn't have that as a passion wouldn't be able to produce creative work, because it takes a lot from you mentally. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. There's a lot of time, a lot of logistics, and then the what's the word? The reward when you produce something, it's not that great.
As in the monetary.
Yes, we'll get to the commercial parts of it as well. But just, I think with creative ventures, it's never good enough. You always feel like you can do more or do it better. So you never really leave fully satisfied. You'll be proud of certain aspects of it, but there's just more you feel like you can do. So it's not really something you can tick off and complete fully. It always ends up becoming, if you finish something, it's like you've accepted it to a certain point. So it's like there's that side of it. And if you put yourself out there in public, the other thing is, because art is so subjective, you get such a mixed reaction and opinion about your work, sometimes asked for, sometimes not. So that's also not rewarding. Like, think about even movies. Like, sometimes there are like $1 million funded, budgeted movies, and there's like a whole crew and cast behind to make that happen. And it's not like anyone ever does it half-heartedly. Like, they're putting their all to try to produce good work. But then the movie comes out and it doesn't get the feedback that they were hoping for. You know, people dislike the lighting, people dislike the colors, people dislike the shots that they chose, how they filmed it, because art is subjective.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of when, like, was it when like that Sonic movie came out, and there was a lot of like feedback, criticism around like the appearance, because I was trying to do like a live action version, and then I think they changed it, and then people still weren't happy about it. And the same with the Lion King as well. I think people were saying that it was either too realistic or something about the appearance of the animals that just didn't look quite right. But animals don't talk, so I don't really understand how do you really reanimate a talking animal to look realistic, because they don't talk English.
It's pretty interesting, like the things that people have an opinion about. Even like some edgy stuff sometimes, like it's an intentional decision to produce it a certain way, and people just don't, like, they don't care about the work or the intention that went into it. And that's kind of the reality of life. And it's kind of hard, especially in a work context. That's why I think it's healthier to like diversify your hobbies and interests and passion into like separate buckets, so that sometimes you just do it more for yourself. And I think that will keep your love for it as well.
Yeah, once like, well, for me personally, like once a hobby or something feels like work is when it's like not, for me, worth doing anymore. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you know, we have jobs, but we do it because we get paid for it. But if I'm not getting paid and I'm not really enjoying doing something, then I'm just not going to bother with it. It has to bring some level of fulfillment or happiness or enjoyment. And that's like my what happened with me and video games. Like I love playing video games, but I had to take like a break for a while because I just found that I was so such a perfectionist when it came to playing video games and wanting to clock and complete absolutely everything. And so that just meant like every time I had to start a new game, I was like, oh, it's like so much work. So then I just took a bit of a break and stopped playing it. That's just why I like really playing like those games where it's more like little mini games, because it's like there's no like long-term, you know, task of collecting things or doing things. It's just like playing for the fun, and there's no, it's aimless essentially.
Yeah, they're like casual games.
Yeah. Like for example, like Mario Party. Like it's a fun game. You get to, you know, play a little bit of strategy, skills stuff. But you know, I can just literally like play it for like an hour and then be done with it. Whereas say, you know, Pokemon, which I love playing, like it's like a whole thing around completing, you know, collecting badges, collecting Pokemon, you know, finding items. And I have to just really be in that mindset of wanting to play and enjoying the adventure. Otherwise, yeah, it's just like work almost to me.
Yes, I agree. Games are also a creative venture. There are so many indie games out there, or like self-produced games that are out in market, and people do it because they love games and they like creating something, and it's also a piece of art that is, I feel like, is underappreciated. It's kind of this weird thing, and I don't really have a lesson for this that I have a strong opinion about. Because yes, human side of you should be like, oh, appreciate that there was effort that got put into this, and there was like, that wasn't the original intention. Therefore, like, show more kindness. Yes, definitely don't be a dickhead for like no reason about it, about other people's work. But at the same time, I think people are entitled to have an opinion. And sometimes people aren't producing, like, if you're producing art, I think like you aren't really producing it for others. I think then you're kind of doing it for almost the wrong reason. Because if you're producing it for others, then it is kind of a job, and you would approach it differently, because then you would take into account what the other person likes. So I think it's important for artists to just like produce what they like and be content with that. And I heard something a couple of years ago from like online content creators that resonated with me. There's kind of like this weird balance, because when you have passion creative projects, you should do it. You should do what you love, because the chances of you liking something means that someone else in the world probably likes the same things. So you're probably not alone. It's just a matter of fact whether or not you reach them through your forums to kind of get that public validation. However, if you want to succeed and find like a mass market fit, then it becomes strategic and work. And the creative passion actually needs to take a back seat, because you need to remove that individual bias if you want to succeed from a business point of view, which I thought that's why I think the business 101 things we did for our palette cleanser is pretty a nice thing to relate to our topic today, because I think business really is a separate thing, and I think people need to remember that.
That's right. I think what you might perceive as something that is popular, or that you think, oh, everyone's going to like this and need it, might just be, a very skewed bias view and perspective. And then you don't realize it until that's like launching the product, or you try to sell it where you're like, actually, yeah, it's not going to succeed because there's a very niche demographic
that you can reach, and there's like a cap.
That's why they do companies, when they're releasing new products or new TV shows, they do like a lot of focus groups and pilot to test the waters with a range of different, demographics and genders and people, to then be like, yeah, is this something that the general public wants, or is it just a very select few? And then, obviously then doing the numbers and getting your accounting and finance people to sort of see if it's a viable product financially.
Because you know what I think is actually a lie as a life lesson that tends to get fed to you, is that if you do a job that you like or are passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. Like, have you heard that quote before?
Yeah.
I think it's the most loaded lesson or expression. I think it's so rare for anyone to do a piece of work where there is other people's you need to be conscious of, and there is like an exchange of service and reward, so money most of the time, for it to ever be something that you truly love. I think there's going to be jobs for you that you will enjoy more than others because you're good at it and you like it to a certain amount that you make it work for you. But I don't think you'll ever feel like it's not work. So I learned this the hard way because, like I said, once upon a time I tried to be a filmmaker, and a combination of me realizing that I only liked part of it and how much work was in it, I realized I didn't like it enough just to do it as a job for not the rewards. And I started doing like to pay the bills, I had to like figure out, okay, what's like kind of like a adjacent things like filmmaking that is kind of easy to create a career for. And I started working like advertising for a little bit and doing a lot of like campaign work, which is like, it is fun. Like, I don't want to disregard that, like, just because something's a job or it's a work, there isn't like moments or elements of it that is fun. I just think it's not the same fulfillment that you would get if you just did it purely for yourself. And what I learned was, as I was like in that industry for a little while, I tried so hard to make it like my passion thing. And I felt like I was putting myself like putting too much of myself in it, like thinking about my own ethics and moral compass and trying to apply it to work. And then I think that's when it got like stressful and hard to do, because I'll have a creative idea and if my client didn't like it, like I took it personally. And when campaigns didn't do well, I also like overthought it. And I realized just through failing a lot that it's actually okay if people don't like your idea. It doesn't make it an idea that you can't like. And I felt like it was a milestone thing that you had to go through while growing up to learn that if you want to find true like fulfillment, you need to figure out what you need to do for yourself personally. Because I think there's like separate components of your life.
Components? What do you mean?
Like your social life, your work life, your personal. I don't know what the right word categories. Like I think there's buckets you need to fill to feel fulfillment in your life. So it's basically your social life, your me time, so your personal fulfillment, and then like work for like practical reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think about like work will always take up a huge chunk. If you're just even you're working normal, when I say normal, I mean like 9 to 5 full-time hours, because that's what, like 5 out of the 7 days. So, you're going to have to at least do something that brings you some level of joy, whether it's from the passion of the work that you do, or you feel like you're compensated monetarily, because then you can use that to, purchase like passion, whether it's like traveling or, go experiencing stuff or, food. So I think work is always going to be, unless you're like, you win the lottery or you're like a trust fund baby, you don't need to work. It's always, you're going to have to work, and it's going to be a lot of the time that's taken out of the week. So yeah, it's kind of finding something that you don't hate, but then you find something you love and you also make a lot of money. That's like probably the perfect balance, but you can't always win.
Is this concept Ikigai, Ikigai, which is a Japanese philosophy, might be the right word, where you find true balance. I don't know the direct translation, but it's full balance if you can discover a balance between your spiritual wants, which is your passion, things you love, things you're good at, and find a way to apply it to practical things like a job and stuff like that, and being able to make money for it while making an impact around the world. And I think you don't find that. Like, I think it's very rare to be able to find the middle of that, because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. And if you know what a Venn diagram is, they all overlap. And the idea is like, if 2 of them overlap, it's a passion. If another 2 overlaps, it's a mission. But then only those 2 are overlapping. And it's very rare for all 4 to overlap in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like perfect alignment.
I think it's so rare. And if anyone else there is living that life and listening to this and be like, she's wrong, she just didn't get lucky and find it. Honestly, good for you. Live your best life. Have it all. Because I couldn't, but I found contentment because I found a way to fulfill all those buckets in other ways by having a lot of hobbies and
like
doing a lot
of
this podcast is a hobby and I'm enjoying it a lot. Yeah, I had a story, but now I forgot it. There was something about that.
I was going to say, like, I think there was like a study also done around like correlating someone's level of happiness with how much money they make. And there's like a point where there is an exponential level of happiness, but it just starts tapering off as you get higher and higher. You're not, for every additional dollar you're making, you're not getting the same increment of happiness. And so there's a point where it peaks because I think obviously as you make more money, there's probably more responsibilities. And in most cases, you might be working more hours, or there's a shift in what you want to prioritize. Because sometimes when you get to those certain levels, you might be a certain age where you start having to think about, having kids. And then when you do have kids, it's about spending time with them, so you'd rather like spend time and have fun with your kids versus, working an extra couple of hours where you could be making a lot of money.
I think your life priorities do change as you grow and other things kind of like come and leave your life, which might change that balance as well. So I feel like the balance is never like a perfectly leveled board. I feel like there's always going to be something dipped, which is like what your priorities are in that particular stage of your life. And if you fulfill that, you will find contentment.
I think when you're like, for me, like when I was young, I like remember watching a lot of like those shows and movies about like really like very wealthy, uber rich kids. That movie Richie Rich.
Yeah.
Like that. I was like, oh God, it would be so fantastic to like live in a huge house, have a mansion and, have all these like people that look after you, cook for you, clean for you. And I think like I always had that thought, oh, like there's no way that like people who make a lot of money are unhappy because they can pretty much buy anything they want. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that that's not really true. I think money does afford you to buy stuff, but that doesn't give you permanent happiness. Sometimes it's almost like a hit of dopamine because you buy something nice, but then you're moving on to the next thing, or you're maybe the money you spend, you start thinking like, oh, actually, now I have to make that money again because I've spent it on a nice watch or something like that. And now it's like it's something like you have to like go through and experience before you learn and have that life lesson. Because I think I might have said previously, like for me personally, like I could have all these people and watch all these YouTube videos about people saying like, this is not going to bring you happiness or don't do this. I think I used the example around like, my mum telling me not to touch the stove when it's hot, but I had to touch it to know it was hot and to not do it going forward. I think that's the case with like money. People, I remember people always saying that, and you watch all those Lifetime movies or those Sesame Street or Play School sort of segments where they try to teach you that lesson, but it doesn't really go in because then I guess for me, I just had to learn it myself.
Don't get us wrong. Money is still a privilege and it does provide a level of comfort and happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But what you said is right. Like, even if you continue to make money, there is like a correlation of happiness because you can spend the money with things you like and do what you want to do. But then eventually it gets to a point, if you're not fulfilling those needs and you're only working to make that money, then it's not that great.
Yeah.
Anymore.
I think that's where that exponential growth happens. It's like when you make enough money where you're being able to pay for bills, you're able to buy like all the necessities and you have, a bit of extra money so you can go on a holiday. I think that's like the optimal level. And then when it becomes more excessive where, it's, well above that is where it starts tapering off. Yeah. So I think obviously, like you said, like, it would be very, very like stressful and you'd be very unhappy if like you're really struggling to meet, all those, monthly bills, which unfortunately there's a lot of people that are in that situation because of the cost of living crisis that's happening. So yes, that's kind of what my intention is, that the excess above, being able to, live and, have all the necessities such as food, shelter, etc.
Yeah. You know what I hate or what annoys me or irks me a little bit is when people disregard other people's success and how they want to spend it. So I have a few circle of friends, including myself, who have worked really hard to get into a position of life where we are privileged to have some sort of disposable income as of right now. And we like to spend that income on excessive things. So it could be designers or stupid toys. I'm really into blind boxes at the moment. That's a different conversation. Or going to like an expensive meal. And I think what really irks me is when you try to tell people about something that's bringing you joy, because it just does. And the people respond with, oh, you know what you could have brought with that money? Or you know what you could have done instead? You know, it would be cheaper to cook that meal at home. It's like, why are you dissing on someone's enjoyment? Like, they're not saying it to rub it in your face, I think. But like, that really irks me because I think it's always been the other way. So I think like publicly society's like, oh, you know, you shouldn't like talk about like things that are privileged and stuff like that. Oh, they try to teach you that like, oh, material things aren't the most important thing in the world. And they're like, part of those lessons are true to a certain extent. But then I hate the shame that has like evolved as a result of that.
Yeah, it's I think it kind of, my experiences with that, what I saw was when post the GFC, so the financial crisis, where a lot of people were, you know, in really bad financial situations, and there's others that were much more fortunate. A lot of you know, there was a lot of judgment with people who had money, but it wasn't their fault. That it's like, I guess, almost like the hate that is towards nepo babies, and you know, the fact that because they're born into money and have the advantages because their parents could give it to them, that's really unnecessary because that was something that they couldn't control. And if their parents could give them that, you know, I'm sure every parent would want to give their kid, you know, the best opportunity. And it just happens that some people are better off, whether it's through connections or money. But I agree with you, like with, you know, how people want to use their money that's sort of on them. And I guess you can't really stop judgment, but, you know, you can judge silently in your head. You don't need to say it out loud and make the person feel bad, especially like when people say, oh, you know, that could have been like donated or something like that.
Oh, that's the worst one.
Because
you could have donated that to charity. Yeah. Dude, you don't know what I do for charity. And you don't know what I want to do in my free time. Like, relax. I'm just trying to tell you a story about something I did on the weekend that was fun, or something I brought recently that made me happy.
Yes, you sound very triggered from it, so I'm assuming it's probably happened. This is also why, like, yeah, it's you know, it's sometimes you like buy something, but you don't want to like let people know about it because you fear of that judgment. And that's unfortunately just the way the world works.
But that's sad. Like, that's so disappointing. I hate that some people work so hard to like buy something expensive and then they feel like they need to hide it. Like, that's so sad. Don't you want to celebrate stuff that you've earned?
The converse happens as well, though. It's like sometimes there are people that live extremely frugal and will buy like the cheapest kind of cuts of meat, or buy like, you know, secondhand goods and stuff. And then people that, you know, buy nicer things might also judge and be like, oh, why don't you like spend your money on better quality things?
That's true.
So it happens both ways. It's not just the judgment of people that spend excessively and, you know, that might be the hobby and that's fine. But it's also people that live, you know, extremely frugal. Like, you know, I remember there being a lot of judgment on people that would buy like home brand, you know, the home brand stuff like at Woolies and Coles, because that was always like the cheapest of the you know, whether it's packet of chips or cereal, etc. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's their choice. And, you know, maybe in fact they, you know, have a nice little nest egg because they've been able to save all that money from buying, you know, not spending as much money.
You're so right, actually. When I made less money and I was just like getting by, I'd buy like cheaper furniture, which means like the furniture's quality is like not as great or it's not as polished looking or whatever. And I remember I had friends who like came over who made more money and would like, I kind of do this too, so I feel bad saying this, but sorry, I don't do this exact thing, but people who give you unsolicited like advice and commentary. So I give unsolicited advice and commentary, and I'm trying to do better about that, but that's a different story. But the story that I was referring to was when I had like less nice furniture, it was fine, it did the job, and I bought stuff more for functionality over like aesthetics. I remember like a few friends would be like, oh my God, you know, if you invest in this cupboard instead, it'll last you a lifetime. You won't even have to buy another one. Or at least like with this one, like it's like fine for now, but you're going to have to keep replacing it. So it's going to add up anyway. And I'm like, first of all, no one asked. Second of all, like the reason I probably purchased that is because like it would take a hit to like spend that much up front if I don't have that type of money then and there. And like I would prefer to have a cupboard now versus saving up for 6 months. Like that's not how I want to diversify my budget with my financial situation right now. It's insane. So you're actually right. It does kind of happen both ways. I think my whole point is like, don't judge people with how they want to spend their money and time. As long as they're not harming other people, I don't think there's like a reason to like put it down.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Although there's been this whole debate around counterfeit designer goods and how a lot of people say, oh, you know, like I'm buying it because, you know, I don't want to support, you know, big bad corporations. And, you know, it's like, well, I guess in some cases it's saying it's like, oh, you know, some of the working conditions or they're not getting paid as much as the workers or something making these. But then a lot of people also give crap to people who, you know, buy counterfeit goods because it supports like terrorism. And a lot of it funds a lot of like black, what is it called? Like underground black market sort of mafia gang sort of activities.
I think buying counterfeit goods is bad if you're trying to buy it for those reasons or trying to pass it as the real thing.
Or sell it as the real thing. Yeah.
Because I think it disrespects the work that went into that original product and that design. I think it's more to do with that. Like, you might be supporting a big corporation today because they're a big corporation today. Like, that was part of their success story. That's the business side of their life. But most of these things tend to start as a nice, small business, a small story where there's like an origin to it. And I think it's so disrespectful to disregard that, especially handbags. I think handbags, like there's always like a designer. So there's like a creative process. Again, we're circling back. There's a creative process that like there was intent with how this bag was produced, the structure, the materials used. Like there was all these thoughts put into it before it became a mass-produced product, a designer product. And if someone's just copying on the side and then trying to like pretend that it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a difference between like a replica, which is like them trying to imitate the exact product with the branding.
Yeah.
And there's dupe, which I think dupe, like it's like.
Yeah, I'm okay with dupes because you're making it more accessible.
Yeah. And in some cases, like the dupes help popularize the more expensive thing where people are like, oh, I didn't know this design originated from this brand, and then they get to know the brand. But yeah, I think when you sort of explicitly like brand it as, you know, like Louis Vuitton or whatever, then, you know, it's essentially stealing someone's intellectual property and their brand essentially.
Exactly that. Like I wouldn't buy something with the pattern because like, what's the point? If you want to buy the general bag structure because there's other brands that have made it more affordable and accessible and that's just within your means, then yeah, do that instead, you know? Yeah. It's a weird thing. Because I think people say it when there's big corporation stuff like that, but here's the direct like example in a different context. where I think you can see it more clearly. So there's been a lot of like discord about AI art.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So artificial intelligence can learn people's art style and then produce like similar art utilizing technology. And there's a lot of discord online because they're like, well, if you're copying someone's art style, then is it really like unique art? Because you're basically trying to like regenerate something that looks exactly the same as that.
That's an interesting one.
Because I think AI art, like I think the potential around AI art is there. Like I think AI artists can be a thing and I think it can be done tastefully. But I think there's like a right way and a wrong way. I think a right way is using prompts to truly create something. There was like a famous like Vogue cover, I think it is, like a fashion magazine cover. The first magazine cover using AI art when AI first blew up. And I remember like following the story of the artist that actually produced the artwork. And her art was like unique because she would use prompts to describe and keep iterating. So she's like, I want a strong woman astronaut walking towards me. I want her to wear XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Like her prompts were, I guess, generic, and it was just the way she wanted to express certain things, and then she would tweak it as the image was generated until it got to a point that she really liked. Yep. In no part of her prompt where she was like, I want it to be like artist A, like I want that style or anything like that. And I think that's where like it's applied nicely. Whereas like I think what might be bad is, okay, so I commission this artist to do our opener. What will be bad is I take her portfolio, run it through a language learning thingy, and then get an AI to spit out, be like, okay, now that you've learned this art style, go produce an opening of a girl character and a boy character in the airport and using that style. That would be bad because I would suggest that's stealing art.
Yeah. It's a hard one because, it's really hard to create something that has never been done before because, it's been, thousands of years and things have been invented and things have been recycled. Because I think, you think about fashion, like things go out of trend and then they get brought back and then become trendy again. And even like, original designers will like do similar stuff. Like sometimes you see like in a certain season, there'll be like a whole thing about people liking like floral designs and then next minute everyone's doing that. But they're doing it in their own way.
I think it's different when you're inspired or influenced by
like the artist you talked about, like 8-bit, like that.
So she didn't create 8-bit or pixel art. Yeah, so she took that inspiration as like a general thing. And then she's applied her own art style to it over time.
Yeah.
So that's why it's still...
Yeah. I'm actually trying to think about like, because do you remember those like singing competition shows like Australian Idol, American Idol? And the whole purpose of that was that throughout the competition, they will like select songs that have already been released. And I always remember like this critique where I would watch it and I'd be like, oh, they're saying it really good. And the judges would be like, it was good, but you didn't make it your own. You just sang it exactly like the record. And I never understood that. And I think now I'm sort of linking it to what you're saying, that
we don't need another artist like that because we have them already.
Yes, that's right. And that, you want to become your own. You don't want to like copy and paste the exact, vocal styles of this person and sing exactly like it. Because I'm assuming AI can do that. You can do like a 1-for-1 replica. And that's why they always say, make it your own style. And that's maybe where you're changing the formula enough where it becomes its own original piece. Although that's, you think about, actually, this is like funny, not funny, but like, like medicine, how medicines, I don't know exactly how medicines are made because I'm not a chemist or in that field, but when someone invents like a particular medicine, and then they patent it, which means no one else can copy that formula for for how many years. But I understand, like, if someone like uses the same formula but adjusts it by like the tiniest bit, then that technically counts as a new formula, but it will do the same thing as that original patented one, and they can get away with that.
Yeah.
In that case, would you consider that then like technically like stealing? Or
To a certain extent, yes. Yes.
I guess in those cases, though, technically, those competitors doing it, they help create more competition and therefore make the medicine more like accessible to people. Because like if you have only one person that has that formula and sells it, and it's the only medicine that fixes a certain symptom or illness, then they can like charge an exorbitant amount. So then this other company, you could say, is actually doing a public service by making another product does the same thing, but then offers it at a cheaper rate, and then makes maybe the original competitor, the original inventor, have to lower their prices.
Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping like the type of people who are producing medicines are the type of people who are trying to help lives.
Not always.
And provide care.
Not always, because there was that whole Pharma Bro, was it guy? The one that I can't remember his name, but he essentially like acquired the rights for this. I think it was like a diabetic medicine, and it was like a very specific one that a lot of people had to use, and jacked up the price by like a crazy couple 100 percentage points, and then all these people couldn't afford it. But technically he didn't do anything. I don't know whether there was anything illegal, but then I think he got there was a lot of obviously hate and backlash because it was obviously profits before people.
Yeah. I don't
remember his name is. It's on the back of my head.
I feel like that's
what I'm saying. Like sometimes you have those people that are, that are in a field where it is about, helping people, or should be about helping people, like medicine. But, they're coming in with a business mindset. But then at the same time, the companies that make these medicines are businesses, and they need...
Well, you need business for the economy to run. Like, I understand why it's there. It's why I pay my artists, because, like, they need to live.
Yeah.
That's why they charge me, like, a reasonable rate for their time.
So, like, your sort of... what you talked about, how AI is in a sense kind of disrupting, I guess, the artistic field, because it's maybe creating a cheaper way for people to buy art or get a certain product without having to commission someone. I remember like learning in art class, like, back in the day, where if you wanted like a family portrait, you had to get like an artist, and they would like paint an exact, setting. So you sit there and then they'll paint for hours. And when the camera got invented, it pretty much made those artists' jobs redundant, because you could easily take a picture and then within a few seconds you'll get this, portrait of the family.
I think I told you that story.
And did you? Well, I remember learning in art school. But then that set this whole wave of where painters had to do something that obviously wasn't about painting the exact scene that they saw. And that's sort of where you got like, the Impressionism movement, and all these artists that were painting not what they saw, but like how they felt. And so they would look at a scene but paint it not in like a one-for-one replica. It would be like almost a subjective, scenery, but it wasn't the actual scenery. Or like they would paint emotions. So they were doing stuff that...
they're pushing the creative, like it pushed creative innovation.
Yes, that's right, because of the invention of the camera. Because now they're like, well, there's no need for us to do, these lifelike portraits anymore.
Yes. So I wouldn't compare the pair with that example, because in those circumstances, the people who painted like for likes, again, it was just a job. So they had a very specific brief. So they learned a specific skills to like draw a certain way. So that's not like true art, if that makes sense. Like true art, it's like your creative things. It's not like they did a style and then the camera copied that style forever, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of find it very impressive if someone can paint like very realistically where it looks like exactly the scenery or
it's a skill.
the person or the family or whatever, onto canvas. Because I did art and I can't paint
either.
Or at all. Or draw. Yeah. Well, like the closest thing I can draw is like a stick figure and that's it. The smiley face. That's my level of artism. Not artism. Artistic flair.
Artistry?
I don't know.
Is that a word? I don't know.
What did I say? Artism. I was thinking of autism. Artist. Not as artistic. Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, well, I said it earlier. I don't think AI. I'm not against AI art. I think there's going to be opportunities to like actually produce cool stuff using AI. Like I think it shouldn't be disregarded. I just think it's wrong if people use AI technology just to copy an artist from their own work and stuff like that, and not give credit where credit's due, etc., etc.
Yeah,
it's like equivalent of like before AI. It's equivalent of like people tracing someone else's work and then trying to resell that. I think there's a difference between if you're tracing it for personal things, like you're just learning to draw or you're a fan, so you just like trace it and it's like for your home, like just for your own consumption. But I think it's different when you like trace it and then you like try to like gain commercially from it. I think that's what I think even with AI art, I think that's actually my biggest thing about it. I think my whole thing, actually, the whole theme of it is like, I don't think I like it when people take someone else's whatever it is and try to commercial from it when it's like not something of theirs to commercial of. Like, I don't think I'm against commercializing things. I'm against people stealing someone else's work to commercialize it. It's like if someone drew a cartoon girl and that was really popular, then you go draw a cartoon girl as well, but do it differently and commercialize it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I was going to say something, but I forgot. I think it ultimately comes to the user of the AI and how you direct them. It's similar to like when things were invented, like guns or whatever product. It's ultimately how people choose to use it, because ultimately those things have to be told or be controlled, and they're always being controlled by humans, and it's just that humans' responsibility to make sure they use it within the ethical and moral boundaries of what you would consider a person that has ethics and morals would use it as.
On that note, we won't end on being big haters, and we'll go into our dessert segment of the podcast. Dessert is a segment where we take an intentional moment to appreciate the sweet moments of our lives or things that are happening recently. Essentially, we're practicing gratitude.
Gratitude. What am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? I'm trying to think.
I'll go first.
Okay, good.
I'm grateful for our opener. It's cute. I love it so much. Like, if you are listening audio only at the moment, can you please just like skip to the start and watch it? It's literally a 10-second opener. Everything about it's so cute. It just brings me joy. I love looking at cute things. It makes me so happy, which is why I like blind boxes as well, because the the blind boxes that I buy are like little statues of character designs that I find so cute that I just want to stare at it all day.
Okay. Yes, I know your obsession with blind boxes. It's kind of like my obsession with those little gotcha, what are they called again? Those little
Yeah, gotchas. Well, they're kind of blind boxes, but in a capsule.
And much cheaper because they're normally like a couple of bucks. How much is a blind box on average?
The ones I buy from Pop Mart ranges between 30 to 40.
Yeah, it's a bit of money, especially if you're buying a lot. By
that much.
I am grateful for cars.
Yeah.
So I've been like pretty much. I think I went through a period where it was just more convenient for me to drive to work and not take public transport because I had stuff after work, and then late times it's just easier to get home by car versus train, bus, etc. But I've kept doing that, and I've actually just really appreciated that. When you're driving in a car, you kind of you're in the comforts of having aircon or heating, and you can blast sort of music in the background, and if you're carrying anything heavy to work, you can. It's not like you're lugging it onto a tray. You can just chuck it on the side, and then when you go home, you don't really have to care about what time you're going home because you don't need a timer with any bus or train schedule. So yeah, grateful for cars and having a car to be able to use and travel around. I know it's a little kind of funny and random,
but it's a good one. I think people forget to show gratitude for small things that make their life more comfortable. Like I think people underrate that all the time.
True. It doesn't have to always be a whole.
It doesn't have to be the most profound, meaningful thing in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Practicing gratitude is also acknowledging the small, subtle presence in your life that makes it better.
Yeah, just like it was me last week when I was grateful for potatoes. Yes.
Good one. All right. Meal prep. Meal prep is things we're looking forward to, things we're going to do, goals we want to set that we want to just say out loud, acknowledge.
God, what do I have? I think you should go first again. I'm a bit lost for thoughts now. I
have I like to call her my childhood friend, even though we met in high school. She's one of my longest friends. And I'm seeing her on the weekend, so I'm really looking forward to that because she's one of those friendships where I still feel close to her, but just because of life and who our circle's expanded to, she's the type of friend that I realistically only really see once a year. But every time we see each other and the fact that we've tried to keep up with this once a year thing, it's really nice every time we get that moment together. So I'm really looking forward to that happening this weekend. That's actually probably another thing I'm really grateful for low maintenance friendships.
Yeah, they're the best friendships. No effort required. It's kind of
a mutual understanding.
Yeah. There's no pressures on having to meet this many times or catch up, and it's very like you said, effortless. My meal prep is to actually just drink more water. Kind of sometimes forget to drink water during the day, and I end up having this random dry mouth sort of icky thing. And then I just realized I've just been sitting at my computer the whole day working and not drinking. So probably actually need to do what you do and start investing in hundreds and hundreds of cool bottles. So then I feel a need to carry them around and look at them and then remember to drink at the same time. I'm the type where I would be happy with just reusing a plastic bottle I bought, those Mount Franklin. I feel like those pump water bottles used to be really cool and a treat as using as a water bottle, more than once. But now it's next level with all these different brands. What's it? Owala.
Yeah, my water bottle that I have here at the moment. I actually have a collection of water bottles. I don't know. I like them. I like how practical they are. Yeti.
Getty or whatever. But anyway, and some of them are quite pricey actually.
Yeah, but they're supposed to last forever.
Yes, that's right. But anyway, I probably should maybe invest in one or two so then I can
if that's what you need to motivate you
to drink water. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, for watching, listening from wherever you are in the world. We appreciate you. We're grateful and we thank you. And we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya. Bye.